Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. Chains rattled as the guards dragged the human across the palace courtyard. His shirt was torn. Blood dripped from his lip. His name was Jackson, and he was the only human prisoner ever brought to the planet Kezareth. Crowds of alien nobles filled the high stands above him. Their eyes glowed. Their mouths twisted into cruel smiles. They whispered words in their strange language, but one name was repeated again and again. The human. The human. The human. At the highest seat on a golden throne sat Queen Virelia. She wore a dark crown with razor-sharp tips and held a staff made from starbone. Her long silver dress flowed like smoke. Her eyes, cold and powerful, studied Jackson like he was just another animal. Beside her, a general leaned in and said, "He helped the rebels escape. 3 ships were lost." Virelia didn't blink. "Then let him die slowly. Feed him to the beasts." The general nodded. The queen stood, raised her staff, and her voice echoed through the court. "Let the human face the pit of beasts. May his courage feed the sand." The crowd roared. Jackson didn't speak. He stared straight ahead as the guards shoved him forward. 2 huge metal gates opened ahead. Behind them, the arena waited. It was a massive circle of stone and sand, surrounded by high walls. The ground was marked with old bloodstains and deep claw scratches. A guard pushed him through. The gates slammed shut. He was alone. Above him, trumpets blew. The queen's voice rang out, "Release the lions!" 3 doors opened on the far side of the arena. Out stepped massive alien creatures, twice the size of Earth lions. Their skin was thick and scaled, their teeth long and dripping with foam. Yellow eyes locked onto Jackson. The crowd fell silent. Everyone waited to see him scream, but he didn't. Jackson slowly turned in a circle, eyeing the beasts. He looked calm, too calm. There was no fear on his face, only focus. He scanned the arena floor, sand, rocks, old broken weapons buried halfway. No help, no armor, just survival. The first lion growled and charged. Jackson didn't run. Instead, he stepped aside at the last second, grabbed a sharp bone shard from the ground and jabbed it into the beast's leg. The lion howled and fell sideways. The crowd gasped. The second lion circled, then leapt. Jackson dropped low, rolling beneath it. He reached the broken stone pillar and yanked free a rusted metal rod. Not sharp, but strong. The beast came again. This time, Jackson struck its jaw with all his strength. It stumbled, confused by the unexpected pain. The queen leaned forward. Her smile faded slightly. "Strange," she whispered. "He does not fight like a brute. He watches." The third lion approached slower, smarter. It growled low and circled. The other 2 were wounded but alive. Jackson breathed heavily. His hands bled. Sweat dripped from his forehead. But he stood tall. The crowd began to murmur. Some aliens leaned forward. The queen's advisors shifted uncomfortably. Then, without warning, all 3 beasts attacked at once. Jackson didn't run. He ran toward them. Using a low ledge, he jumped between 2 lions, causing them to clash into each other. One roared in confusion, biting the other's side. Jackson spun, swinging his rod into the third's eye. Dust filled the air. Growls and howls echoed through the arena. When it cleared, Jackson stood, bruised, bleeding, but alive. The 3 beasts lay groaning on the ground, not dead, but beaten. The arena was silent. No one cheered. No one moved. Even Queen Virelia sat still. Jackson looked up at her. For the first time he spoke. His voice was quiet but firm. "You thought I'd die. But I came to show you what humans do when we have nothing left." The queen's fingers gripped her staff tighter. Her heart beat faster. This was not a weak species. This human was not prey. He was something else. Something dangerous. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't laugh. They didn't blink. No one had ever survived the lions before. But the human, Jackson, who had done more than survive. He stood tall in the middle of the blood-marked arena, breathing hard. 3 massive lion beasts lay on the sand, wounded, growling, confused. They didn't understand what had just happened. Neither did the nobles watching above. On her high throne, Queen Veralia stared down, her lips pressed in a tight line. Strange, she muttered. No fear in him. No hesitation. Her general spoke quietly. Should I order the kill anyway? The queen raised one eyebrow. No, let's see how far this courage goes. She raised her hand again. Below, another gate creaked open. A fresh lion entered, bigger, darker, and angrier than the others. Its mane was black, its teeth like daggers, and its eyes locked onto Jackson the moment it stepped into the light. The other lions backed away, limping to corners. Even they didn't want to fight this one. Jackson turned his head slightly. So, round 2. He picked up the metal rod he'd used earlier, bending it slightly to test its strength. The beast roared. The sound shook the arena walls. The audience leaned forward, breath held. Then it charged. But Jackson didn't wait. He ran straight at it. At the last second, he dropped and slid under its body, slamming the rod upward into its ribs. The beast howled and twisted, tail smashing the ground. Dust and sand flew everywhere. Jackson rolled, avoiding the claws, and grabbed a broken shield half buried in the sand. Guess I'm the entertainment today, he muttered. The lion turned, again, angrier, bleeding now. It attacked faster this time. Jackson blocked with the shield, barely staying on his feet. His arms burned. His side was already bruised. He couldn't take another direct hit. He needed to end it. Fast. Looking up, he saw the broken pillar nearby, the same one from the first round. It had a sharp edge at the top. Jackson took off running. The lion chased, snarling behind him. He climbed the pillar quickly, each step shaky. At the top, he waited. The beast ran forward and jumped. As it soared through the air, jaws open, Jackson leapt, sideways, and grabbed the sharp top of the pillar, swinging his weight and driving it downward. The beast fell, hard. Dust covered everything. For a few seconds, no one could see what had happened. Then the wind cleared the air. The lion lay on the ground, unmoving. Its chest rose and fell slowly. Alive, but finished. And Jackson? He limped to his feet, blood running from his forehead, but still standing. Still, breathing. Still undefeated. The crowd was silent. Then, one voice clapped, then another. Within seconds, the entire arena echoed with thunderous applause and strange alien cheers. Even warriors who once laughed at humans now looked at Jackson with respect. Up on her throne, Queen Veralia stood. Her heart beat faster. Her chest tightened. This human had done the impossible. Not just survived, but earned the crowd's honor. She whispered to herself, "This is not a beast. He is something else." Her general stepped forward again. "He has won their hearts." Verelia's eyes narrowed. "Then we must test his mind next." She turned and gave a cold command. "Bring him to the palace, but keep the chains on." Later that evening, inside a cold stone chamber beneath the royal court, Jackson sat, arms bound, wounds wrapped, still silent. The door opened. Queen Veralia stepped in, alone. No guards, no weapons, just her eyes, sharp, curious. "You fought well," she said. Jackson looked up slowly. "I didn't fight for you." She nodded. "Of course not. You fought because you had no other choice." He didn't respond. She walked closer, circling him. "But there was something in you. Not rage, not fear. Something else." He stared. At her. "Hope?" That word caught her by surprise. "Hope?" she repeated. Jackson nodded. "Hope that someone out there would see a human not as a tool, but as a person." Veralia paused. Her fingers touched the edge of his chains. "We'll see if your hope survives the next trial," she whispered, and with that she left the room, more shaken than she wanted to admit. Because deep down, the queen didn't fear the humans. strength. She feared that he was changing something far more dangerous, her heart. That night the palace of Kezareth did not sleep. Servants whispered in corners. Generals argued in silence. The guards sharpened their weapons with nervous hands. But in the highest tower, the alien Queen Virelia sat alone, staring at a glowing screen in front of her. On it played a recording from earlier that day of the human Jackson. Again and again she watched the moment he stood in front of the beast, refusing to run, refusing to bow. She had ruled for 80 years, seen warriors fall, seen planets burn, but never had a single unarmed prisoner change the mood of an entire arena, and he was just a human. She leaned back in her throne, brows furrowed. What drives a species like his to face death with no reward? Behind her, a voice spoke softly. It was her royal advisor, Zalreth, tall and thin like a shadow. "You are disturbed, my queen." "I am curious," she replied. Zalreth frowned. "Curiosity toward lower life is dangerous." "Is it lower?" she said coldly. "If it survives what kills our best warriors." He paused. Perhaps it was luck. "No," Virelia whispered, her eyes locked on the screen. "It was something else. He planned every move." Zalreth stepped closer. "You fear him?" Virelia's eyes narrowed. "No, but I fear what I don't understand." Meanwhile, Jackson sat alone in a dark chamber deep under the palace. His body ached. His hands were bruised. The bandages they'd wrapped him in were already stained red, and yet his mind was alert, watching, listening. 2 guards stood at the door, but Jackson wasn't thinking about escape. He was thinking about the queen. She had entered his cell that day not as a ruler, but as someone looking for something, and he'd seen a flicker of it in her eyes. Doubt. He smiled to himself. Good. The next morning, Queen Virelia summoned her court. "Bring the human," she ordered. Jackson was led in, wrists bound but head held high. He stood in the center of the court, surrounded by nobles, soldiers, and high priests of her world. "This time," Virelia said, "he will not face beasts. He will face truth." A hologram appeared behind her, showing images of Earth. Cities, forests, children, war. Clips of human soldiers in old battles. The court murmured. Virelia pointed at the screen. "Your people. They live short lives. They destroy their own land. They fight even when there is peace." Jackson stayed quiet. "Why?" she asked. "Why do humans do this?" He looked at the hologram of Earth, flashing with both beauty and destruction. Then he answered, "Because we feel everything too deeply." The court fell silent. Jackson spoke clearly. "When we love fully. When we fear, it shakes us. When we hate, it can blind us, but when we hope..." He looked at her. "That's when we become something even you can't understand." Virelia stared at him. Her heart stirred in a way she didn't expect. "You speak like a philosopher," she said, rising from her throne. "Yet you are just a soldier." "No," Jackson replied. "I'm just a man who refuses to die for someone else's entertainment." The queen stepped closer, now standing face to face with him. "You confuse me, human," she said. Then, "Maybe you should stop looking at me like I'm a beast," he said softly. A strange silence filled the court. Virelia raised her hand, but not to strike. She waved the guards back. "Remove his chains." Gasps filled the room. "But my queen," Zalreth warned. "I said remove them," she repeated. The guards obeyed, though their hands trembled. Jackson rolled his wrists, feeling the blood return to his fingers. The queen turned to him. "You are not free, but for now you are unchained." Jackson looked into her eyes. "I never was yours to chain." Virelia didn't reply. She simply walked away, her heart heavy with something she had not known in decades. Respect. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked alone to the gardens where ancient star plants bloomed. In the sky above, A single moon shined pale and blue, and in her mind one question echoed. What if the strength I feared is the very strength my kingdom needs? The next sunrise painted the palace walls gold, but inside the queen's chamber, the air was cold and sharp with tension. Queen Virelia stood before her war council. Her expression was unreadable. The people speak of the human, her general growled. They call him brave. Some even say, chosen. Another noble added, he cannot be allowed to rise. If he becomes a symbol, he becomes a threat. Virelia didn't respond at first. Her fingers gently touched her crown. Finally she spoke. Then we test his loyalty. The council looked at each other in confusion. The queen's voice was clear. Let him fight once more, but this time, give him a weapon. Let him feel trusted. She turned to her chamber alchemist. But coat the blade in invisor venom. Slow, silent, certain. The alchemist bowed. He'll never know. Later that day, Jackson was brought back to the arena, but it looked different. No sand, no lions. Instead, it was set like a battlefield. Steel walls, high platforms, and in the center, a sleek black alien sword waiting for him. Virelia watched from above. This is not a death sentence, she told herself. It's a lesson. But even she didn't believe her own words. Jackson stepped onto the floor, his wounds still fresh, but his spirit sharper than ever. He walked slowly toward the sword and picked it up. It felt heavier than he expected, but he nodded. All right, let's see what kind of game this is. A gate opened. Out walked an armored alien, one of Virelia's elite, twice Jackson's size, 4 arms, blades in each. Jackson adjusted his grip on the sword. Above, Queen Virelia gave the signal. The battle began. The alien warrior struck first, fast, loud, and deadly. Jackson barely dodged, rolling behind a wall, swinging in defense. Their weapons clashed, sparks flew. Jackson's muscles screamed with each hit. He was fast, smart, but his body was beginning to feel strange. His breath came shorter. His hands trembled slightly. He didn't understand why. I'm not this tired. Not this soon. Another hit. Jackson blocked but stumbled. The crowd began to murmur. Virelia leaned forward, her chest tightened. Jackson fought harder. He moved with instinct, using the arena's structure, sliding under bars, leaping over low walls, trapping his opponent in narrow spaces. The alien roared and came again. Jackson spun and struck a perfect blow to the side of its neck. The alien fell, defeated. The crowd burst into cheers, but Jackson didn't lift his arms. He dropped the sword. His knees buckled, his vision blurred. Something was wrong. In the royal box, the queen's face changed. She saw the symptoms immediately. The weakness, the slow breath, the trembling hands. She looked to her alchemist. You gave him too much. The alchemist bowed low. No, my queen, I used the exact dose. Virelia stood up. She didn't know what she was doing. But she left the royal box. She descended into the arena. Jackson lay on the cold floor, struggling to breathe. Footsteps echoed toward him. He looked up, blurry. The queen's shape appeared through the haze. He tried to sit up. You poisoned me. Her voice was quiet. Yes. He blinked at her. She knelt beside him. I had to see if your courage came from truth or only from fear of death. Jackson gave a broken laugh. And what's the answer? She looked down, ashamed. Your courage is real. And Suddenly, her hand glowed. She placed her palm on his chest. A strange blue light entered his body, warm, calming. Jackson gasped. His lungs filled again. The poison began to burn out of him, forced away by her energy. But healing magic came at a cost. Virelia's shoulders shook. Her strength began to drain. You didn't have to do this, Jackson whispered. I know, she replied, but I couldn't watch you die. Not anymore. By the time the sun dipped below the towers of the palace, both of them lay in the arena, side by side, not as ruler and prisoner, but as something new, something dangerous to those who believed strength only came from fear. That night the sky over Kezareth was quiet, but inside the palace a storm brewed, one that could shake the entire empire. Whispers filled the royal halls. The queen healed him. She used her own life force. For a human, the shadows of the war chamber. Nobles gathered with tight jaws and clenched fists. Queen Virelia's actions had stirred something deep, something dangerous. She is weakening. One general hissed. He is changing her. Another added, and if she changes, we lose control. But far from the noise, in a quiet chamber, guarded by no soldiers, Jackson sat on a bed of smooth stone, wrapped in silken cloth, his breath slow but steady. His skin still glowed faintly from the queen's healing. The door slid open. Virelia entered alone. No crown, no staff, just a simple robe and unreadable eyes. "You should be resting," she said softly. Jackson looked up at her. "You almost died, healing me." "I had to." "No, you didn't," he said. "You chose to." Virelia didn't answer at first. She walked slowly to the balcony and looked out over the stars. "I was trained to rule without emotion. I was taught to control, not to feel," she said. "But then I saw a human stand unarmed before monsters and smile." She turned back to him. "You woke something in me, Jackson. Something I thought I buried." He stood, still weak but stronger than before. "Then why do I feel like this is goodbye?" She walked closer, her face softer now. "Because what I must offer you is dangerous." Jackson's brows drew together. "I'm listening." Virelia lifted her hand. In it glowed a crystal the size of her palm, blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. "This is a blood core," she explained, "a royal bond relic. If I give this to you, you'll no longer be a prisoner. You'll be my equal." Jackson stared at the glowing stone. "Why me?" "Because I don't need another warrior," she said. "I need someone who questions me, who reminds me what honor feels like, and because I trust you." Jackson's heart beat faster. "Are you asking me to be your—" "Yes," she said gently. "My bondmate, my co-ruler, my strength where I am weak." Silence fell between them. Jackson turned to the window. "You were ready to kill me 2 days ago. And now I'm ready to stand beside you," she whispered. He looked back at her. "This bond, is it forever?" Virelia nodded. "In body, mind, and soul. You will share thoughts, feelings, instincts. There will be no lies between us ever again." He was quiet for a long time, then he smiled. "I've been alone for most of my life, but the first time I felt truly seen was when I stood in front of you." He stepped forward and placed his hand over hers. "I accept." The moment their hands touched the blood core, light exploded between them, blinding, soft, and warm. Their bodies didn't just glow. They merged at the edges. His heartbeat matched hers. His mind opened and he felt her pain, her power, her deep loneliness behind the mask of command. And she felt him. His fire, his sadness, his stubborn will to live even when life offered nothing. When the light faded, they stood apart but not separate. Their bond was complete. Virelia's eyes shone with something no one in her court had seen in decades. Hope. But in the shadows, eyes watched. One noble whispered into a dark communicator, "The queen has chosen the human. Begin the plan." A hidden army stirred in the depths of the palace. The court was no longer loyal, and soon, the lovers would face a battle not for survival, but for the throne itself. The golden halls of the palace sparkled under morning light, but something rotten crawled beneath the beauty. Whispers moved like poison in the air. She gave him the blood core. A human? As king? The council will never allow this. In secret chambers, the High Commander Zarun, one of our Queen Virelia's oldest allies, removed his ceremonial armor and replaced it with black battle plating. He looked into the mirror. His eyes were cold now. She has chosen weakness, he said, so we must choose strength. Behind him, generals, nobles, and even priests stood ready. The bond must be broken, one of them hissed, and the human erased. Meanwhile, Queen Virelia stood in the great court beside Jackson, who now wore ceremonial armor made from moonsteel. It didn't look like alien war gear. It was simple, strong, and honest. The queen raised her hand to speak before the court. "My people," she began, "I have chosen a bond not by blood or bloodline, but by courage. I present Jackson, my co-ruler, my partner." Silence, then murmurs, then a single voice, sharp, loud. "Your bond is a mistake." Gasps echoed across the room. All heads turned to see Commander Zarun stepping forward with armed guards. His voice was full of fury. "This human has twisted your mind. You used to be a queen of strength. Now you kneel beside an animal." Virelia's eyes turned to stone. "Careful, Zarun. You speak before your queen." "No," Zarun growled. "I speak before a woman who has forgotten her people." He drew his weapon, and suddenly, half the court did the same. Jackson's hand reached for his side. No sword, no shield. They had entered the court unarmed to show peace. Big mistake. Virelia stepped in front of him. "This is treason." Zarun smirked. "No, my queen. This is correction." He raised his blade, but just before the strike could fall, boom. The ground beneath the throne exploded. Smoke poured from hidden vents. Loyal guards emerged from secret tunnels. A civil war had begun, inside the palace itself. Jackson grabbed Virelia's hand and pulled her behind a pillar as energy blasts filled the court. Screams rang through the halls. The grand banners of the Empire burned in the chaos. "Come on," he shouted. They ran down the marble hallway, ducking fire from both sides. Loyalists clashed with rebels in every corner. Gold floors turned red with blood. In the chaos, a young page, barely more than a child, rushed to Virelia. "Your Highness, the East Gate is still safe." Jackson looked at her. "We need to move. If they kill you, the bond dies with it." But Virelia stood firm. "No. If I run now, I lose everything." She turned, eyes full of fury. "This throne was built by fear. I'll break it with choice." She stepped onto a broken platform, raised her hands, and her voice thundered across the battlefield. "Lay down your weapons." For a moment, just one, both sides froze. "Do not fight for fear," she said. "Fight for what you believe in. If you believe I've failed you, take the crown. But if you believe courage should lead, not blood, then stand beside me." Her body glowed. The bond with Jackson lit the air around her, and slowly, soldiers began to lower their weapons. But Zarun screamed, "Don't be fools! She's poisoned by the human!" He charged again. This time Jackson met him head-on. No weapon. Just bare hands, but the bond gave him more than strength. It gave him clarity. He dodged Zarun's blade, grabbed a fallen staff, and twisted. The weapon cracked. The crowd gasped. Zarun struck again, but Jackson flipped him, driving him to the floor. The crowd circled. Jackson looked around. Anyone else want to test human weakness? No one moved. Zarun spat blood and looked up at the queen. "You've cursed yourself with this bond." Virelia stepped forward and raised her palm. Light flared. "No. I've freed myself." She turned to her people. "And today, I free you, too." That night, the throne room stood quiet. Broken, burned, but reborn. Virelia and Jackson sat side by side, not as queen and prisoner, but as two souls who had earned their place, together. The palace no longer glowed with gold. Its banners had fallen, its stones were cracked, and its halls were quiet. The throne room smelled of smoke and scorched metal. What was once the heart of Kezareth's power now looked like the ruins of an empire. But through the silence, hope walked forward. Queen Virelia entered the broken court. dressed not in royal robes but in simple warrior armor. Beside her, the human, Jackson, stood tall. His armor was dented, his hands bruised, but his eyes were steady. Before them, the nobles, the generals, and the people of Kezareth waited. Some bowed, some did not. And at the center of the room, on his knees and shackled in chains, was Commander Zerun, the former war hero, the rebel leader. Now, the traitor. Virelia stepped forward. "You broke your oath, Zerun. You tried to kill your queen." Zerun raised his head. "No, I tried to save you. From weakness. From him." He spat toward Jackson. The guards raised their rifles, but Virelia held up her hand. No more blood. She looked at the crowd. For centuries, this court ruled through fear, through bloodlines, through pride. But pride has no place in a galaxy that is changing. She turned slowly, making sure every being in the room met her eyes. "I chose Jackson not because he is human, but because he stood when others fell, because he fought when no one believed in him, because courage doesn't wear a crown, it earns one." Gasps, nods. Some even clapped. Zerun growled. "You bond yourself to a species that burns its own world." Jackson stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "We do, sometimes. But we also rebuild it. We protect what we love and we fight for those who can't." He looked around the court. "You saw me as prey, but I stood among your monsters. I survived your poison, and I did not hate you for it. I learned." A priest, ancient and wise, stood slowly. "And what will you do now, human? Now that we have seen your fire?" Jackson smiled slightly. "I won't rule you. I'll stand with her. And we'll build something better, together." Virelia took his hand, and then, before everyone, she spoke the ancient rite, words that had not been spoken for over 500 years. Let judgment end. Let unity begin. She broke her own crown in half and offered one side to Jackson. Not as a king, but as a partner. The hall erupted, not with cheers, but with something more powerful. Respect. Later, high above the city, under the twin moons, Virelia and Jackson stood on the palace balcony. The fires had been put out. The stars looked brighter than ever. "You changed everything," she whispered. "No," Jackson said. "You did. You just needed someone to remind you of what was already inside you." She looked at him, her voice softer. "When I threw you into the pit, I thought you'd die in fear." He chuckled. "I thought the same thing." She smiled. "But instead, you made me believe again." They stood quietly, hand in hand. One human, one alien queen. No longer enemies, no longer strangers, but partners, bonded not by war, but by choice. And as the winds of Kezareth carried their names across the stars, the galaxy began to whisper a new story. She threw the human among the lions, but the lions bowed.